Attilio Holdings fires back at a scathing audited report that raises concerns about the company's potential for conflicts of interest and other improprieties stemming from lease agreements with the Ministry of Finance for 3 apartments. This after it was found that at the time the lease was executed, Attilio, an affiliate of roadwork contractor Bahamas Striping Group of companies, had no business history or evident qualifications as a real estate broker or leasing agent. Further, payment records and documentary evidence indicate that while the ministry executed just 1 lease agreement by signature, it initially made payments to Attilio for up to 3 payments. The audit also found no evidence that the housing needs addressed by Attilio properties were subject to competitive bidding or put before the Government Tenders Board for consideration. There was the added issue that Attilio leases represent a questionable value for money, as comparable apartments for rent advertised online are listed for substantially less. Well, in a lengthy press release, Attilio first makes it clear that despite questions surrounding its qualifications as a real estate broker, it is a reputable company that values individual and collective integrity. And it's on these grounds that it builds its case for the audit statements to be retracted, considering the potential damage to its company's name, brand, and reputation. You see, from the onset, Attilio says it finds it extremely disappointing, the question surrounding who owns the apartments, when the Ministry of Finance knew quite well it is the owner with the mortgage through the Royal Bank of Canada. As for the assertion that the leases represented questionable value for money, Attilio maintains otherwise, insisting that the Ministry of Finance Human Resources Department negotiated with and informed them of their need for living accommodations, allowing for different consultants to occupy the rentals on a rotational basis every 2 to 3 weeks, in some instances requiring multiple occupancy per unit. The available units, says Attilio, were addressed by the Ministry of Finance, and that during the negotiations the ministry stipulated it would be Attilio's responsibility to clean and make ready the units during the rotational period between outgoing and incoming consultants. Additionally, the ministry negotiated for Attilio to pay monthly utilities and bills the ministry without an associated service fee. When one considers these facts, it said it is grossly unfair to make the comparison to a standard online listing while knowingly ignoring all the relating factors that impacts the value proposition. Attilio also believes it begs the question why these facts were not included in the report. BSGC, it says, does not engage in price gouging, and to make such assertions is not only reckless, but defamatory and egregious. All in all, Attilio is questioning the true motive behind the audit, considering no professional courtesy was given to seek information from BSGC, its principals, or executives. The backlash continues in the wake of an approval for Disney to move ahead with its plans for Lighthouse Point. The latest to speak out, the Bahamas Reef Environment and Educational Foundation, in a release expressed deep disappointment, stressing the decision was made before an alternative plan for the so-called sacred South Eleuthera property was even considered. That plan called for more benefits to the local economy and preservation of the integrity of the property's marine and coastal landscape. Brief added that while most of the 700-acre property is privately owned, there are key pieces of Lighthouse Point that are Crown land, and this project will heavily impact the seabed and surrounding marine resources that are outside the boundaries of the property belonging to Bahamians. This decision, they say, highlights the desperate need for better national planning and decision-making about economic and environmental sustainability. The group further argues that the government's decision underscores the importance of its work in environmental education throughout the country. Despite the blow of this latest setback, though, Brief insists that it will continue to advocate for current and future generations of Bahamians to be able to access and utilize the country's marine environment in a sustainable way. The country is reportedly making progress in its bid for accession to the World Trade Organization, but truth is, it still has quite a ways to go. That's the word from the Bahamas' chief WTO negotiator, Shivago Line, who says if there's a 5-step process, We're at the end of step 1.
When I would have gone to Geneva, it was essentially a question of sitting with a group of people, with the team, and answering questions about the trade regime itself, the factual summary about the trade regime, getting clarifications, and then following upon that, they would submit some of those questions, most of those questions or additional questions in writing to you, and so now you have to go back. So no hard negotiations have taken place at all yet.
The main concern for the government, according to Mr. Lang, is to protect and preserve local businesses, no matter how small, adding that the manufacturing industry, though on a small scale, isn't reserved for Bahamians.
In the areas what we have reserved for Bahamians, we've already breached the policy. I mean, so it makes the argument even more difficult at the WTO, because they get to say, well, your largest wholesaler is Cisco. Yes. They get to say you go to on Bay Street, and the vast majority of the owners of the stores on Bay Street are Mexicans and Indians.
And as for how the country would manage with WTO, here's Mr. Lang's reasoning.
I think what we will not see is an opportunity to exist in a relationship with the rest of the trading world that could, for the progressive, modern, ambitious Bahamian, represent opportunities to access markets and to develop business opportunities on terms that look like what others get who are members of an organization. The problem with potential...
That's a huge negative.
Well, the problem with potential is you don't get to measure when it's not realized. You only realize what you lose or what you gain.
It's then better, he said, to live with the WTO than live without it. Mr. Lang was at the time appearing as a guest on the Love 97 JCN Weekly program, Jones and Company. You're watching JCN News. There's more when we return.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Alive.